What's up, nutrition nerds, and welcome back to another video. And today we're going to talk about what to eat after a gym session. Well, actually, it doesn't specifically have to be after a gym session. We're going to talk about nutrition after anything what we call resistance training. Basically anything when you make your muscles move against a force. So that might be gravity, your own body weight, resistance bands, or free weights. But if some of you are watching this and thinking, but James, I don't do those. I just swim, bike, or run. I don't need to do resistance training, do I? Well, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, you do. The importance of this training shouldn't be underestimated. This is how you keep your body strong, and it's crucial for keeping away those little niggles or keeping the injuries at bay. And this isn't just for triathlon, by the way. This is for any endurance sport and just generally keeping healthy. You'd be surprised how many people I see in my clinics who have aches or pains but actually just get better by strengthening the area that's affected. So if you don't do it, do it. And if you do it, listen on and learn how to use nutrition to make the most out of it. Alright then, my resistance-loving athletes, let's get stuck in. As always, let's start by covering some of the science basics to give you the background for the recommendations that I'm going to make based off the latest research. The main thing here is to understand what happens when we do any sort of resistance training. We can get lots of different adaptations and responses to resistance training, and these are just some of them. Essentially, we want our body to repair itself in a better fashion. So that might be bigger, stronger, more capability or capacity. In order to do that, we've got to give our body the nutrients that it needs. So we can optimize our response to training just through the food that we eat after we exercise. Something called muscle protein synthesis is what we want to happen in our body after resistance training. Now this is a fancy term, but in a basic sense, it means creating new muscle tissue, and it's the driver behind the adaptive changes. The opposite to this is muscle protein breakdown. As the name suggests, it's our muscles breaking down. So in order for muscle protein synthesis to occur, we've got to give our body the right tools. And the biggest contributor? Protein. Yep, protein. That stuff that's got the association with bodybuilders has it for good reason. Protein has heaps of uses in our body, but its involvement in muscle building and muscle maintenance is a big one. But I would encourage you to move away from thinking about protein as a gym supplement or something that only bodybuilders need. It's vital for endurance athletes, but also just healthy humans. So the questions are, when, how much, and what kind of protein should we have after resistance training? The current research suggests that in your post-resistance training meal, as a rough ballpark figure, 0.32 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight is a good aim. So for a 70 kilogram athlete, that's about 22 grams of protein. And you don't have to be exact here. Up or down a bit is fine. There's also what we call a window of opportunity in the post-exercise meal. In the first 1 to 2 hours after exercise, it's thought that the muscles are much more receptive to nutrients. So having food early after training is a good way of catching this window. Before we go on to what to eat, there's two other things which I need to mention. I went over this in more detail in my video on protein, but the subunit of proteins are called amino acids. Our body can make some of these amino acids itself, but some of them we have to get through our diet, and these are called essential amino acids. Animal products will usually contain a full range of these essential amino acids, as do 1 or 2 veg options like soya. Research has shown without this full essential amino acid range in your post-exercise meal, muscle protein synthesis is impaired. And one of the amino acids which has been shown to be a particularly important player in muscle protein synthesis is one called leucine. Current research suggests somewhere around 3 to 3.5 grams of leucine in your post-resistance training meal to maximize the improvements. I've put a list of some of the top foods containing leucine in the description of this video. Now just to be clear, you don't have to get this 3 to 3.5 grams of leucine in your post-exercise meal for muscle protein synthesis to occur. If you don't specifically get it, you are still going to get improvements and benefits from resistance training. It's just what those clever scientists and physiologists are recommending from the latest research. Okay, so with that covered, what food options do we have? Firstly is just normal, solid food. Realistically, you could have anything here, but you want to make sure you have a good protein source, like I've put in the description. The second option is to have liquid food, so something like a shake. So you could just use normal or substitute milk, combine it with some peanut butter, some fruit, some oats, avocado, get creative, and make your own milkshake or smoothie. These two options for the vast majority of people are perfectly good. Your other option is to use a supplement like a protein powder. Now I've mentioned this before, but I'm a big believer in your diet giving you the nutrients that you need. And supplements are only if you've got everything else nailed or in specific circumstances. But since the aim of these videos is to cover all of the options and give you the information to make choices, I'll give you some info on how to make as safe a choice as possible if you decide to go with one. And actually, using a protein powder after resistance training is one of those scenarios which I think has merit for an athlete. It's quick and easy, it's transportable, and it usually contains a full range of those essential amino acids that I mentioned, and manufacturers commonly put in that 3.5 grams of leucine. You've got different choices for protein powders like whey, soy, pea or rice. Whey protein is essentially the protein that you get from normal milk. So you can just drink normal milk after resistance training, and research has shown that it has similar benefits to whey protein powder, and it's much cheaper. But that's not always practical, and there are some benefits to a powder over just drinking regular milk, but it's worth knowing. Now a quick note on supplements which include protein powders. I would always advocate doing your own research if you decide to go with one. You should know what you're putting into your body. Buy from a reputable company, and if you're in competitive sport or there is any chance of a drug test, consider buying your supplement that has been tested by a program like Informed Sport or whatever other program your country has. It's important to say that this doesn't remove the risk of accidental doping, but it does minimize it. And it's always the responsibility of the athlete to have made sure that they've fully researched what supplement they're taking, why, and trying to minimize the risk of doping. So that's protein covered. The other thing to mention here is carbohydrates. When we do resistance training, we use carbohydrates. And as you'll know if you've watched any of my previous videos, carbs are important for endurance athletes. You need to make sure you have enough carbohydrates available for your training, especially if you're doing sessions with any sort of intensity. So I would advise having a carbohydrate source along with protein in your post-exercise meal to help replenish your body's store of carbohydrates. That might be through things like oats, bread or pasta, or something like a maltodextrin shake, which I mentioned in my carbohydrate video. That's about it for today's video, and I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you've got any questions, then just let me know in the comments. And as always, press that like button, and if you haven't already, click subscribe. I'll catch you next time. See ya. And if you're one of those ones who aren't doing the resistance training, get on and do it.